Admit it, we've all experienced it. A sound that stops you dead in your tracks. An unexplained movement out of the corner of your eye. The unshakable feeling of being watched. Or maybe it was something more. Maybe it's a story that would have even the most seasoned paranormal investigator shook. This is our new series, Dead Time Stories, your true life tales of the paranormal. These people were brave enough to talk about it. Are you brave enough to listen? This week, our first story comes from Britt Thompson from Greensboro, North Carolina, and her story is short but spooky.
Hi Bridget, my name is Britt and I'm a really big fan of yours. I've been following you for years and I was so excited when I saw Ghost Magnet coming out. I've been listening since the beginning, and then when Dead Time Stories came out, I was even more excited because that means I can share some of my ghost stories with you. So I am a sensitive. I am very in tune to the spirits, so I have a lot of different ghost stories. But I've never done anything like this before, so I figured I'd start with something short and sweet. So the first ghost story I wanted to share with you, back in college, I was staying at home for the summer with my grandmother, with whom I lived when I wasn't at college. And I was nannying that summer. And so I had to get up at like 4:30 to be at my job at 5:30 and work a long day. So I was going to bed quite early, usually about 9 or 9:30. And that week, the week that this instance happened, my grandmother works with a local theater guild, like community theater, and they had a technical week that week. And tech weeks can go pretty late. That's when they like rehearse the play for a week straight before opening night to get all the lighting and costumes and all that right. And they can go quite late. So a lot of the time that week, our schedules were opposite, and she would get home after I went to sleep. But this particular night, it's about 9:30, and I'm laying in bed trying to fall asleep, getting ready to go to sleep. And the way the house is set up, our rooms are directly across from each other, and we have a hall light on that we leave on all the time, like a little lamp. And so everything's dark. I'm trying to fall asleep, and the only light I can see is around my door because it's to the hallway. So everything's dark except for the light under the door, and I'm laying there trying to fall asleep. And I perk up because I hear my grandmother come home. And I hear her walk down the hall, and I hear her go into her room. Now, I hear her do this every night. I know what it sounds like. My grandmother came home, and I thought it was strange because she was home early, but I figured maybe they just had a really good rehearsal night. And so it was so real to me that I even yelled out, "Hey Mom, good night." And when she didn't respond to me, I thought it strange because normally she would holler back good night at me. So the first thing I did was pull out my phone, and I texted her and said, "Hey, you're home early. Did you hear me say good night?" And I waited a minute, and the little bubbles come up, and she's typing, and she texted me back, and she said, "Oh, I'm not home. I'm still at the theater." So I was still home alone, but I heard her come down the hallway and go into her room, and I didn't know what to do. So I just kind of made myself go to sleep. So that's one of my ghost stories. I know it's a little short and sweet, but I just wanted to share, and I have plenty more, so I would love to send some more later. Thanks for listening.
Britt, I think that is a great story. I don't know what is scarier though, having to get up at 4:30 in the morning or your phantom grandmother. I loved your story and we'd love to hear more. Our next story comes from Ashley Staub from Lewiston, Idaho, but she has some chilling stories from Edinburgh, Scotland, to one of our favorites, the Stanley Hotel, to a very haunted birdcage theater in Tombstone, Arizona.
Hey Bridget, my name is Ashley Staub, and I live in Lewiston, Idaho, and I got a couple of different stories for you. The first one, I was 17, and it was 2003, and we had gone to England. My cousin was in the Air Force, and he lived just outside of London, so we stayed with him for a month. And we decided to do a road trip from London to Edinburgh. And ever since I've seen Scariest Places on Earth, I've always wanted to go to Chillingham Castle. So we stopped at Chillingham, and it was closed. And I was bummed. And we're just outside of the cemetery, and we're talking about our plan. And everybody decided that on the way back from Edinburgh, we would stop back at Chillingham. And the gates of this cemetery opened up, and this older fella started walking out. And he didn't acknowledge us at all, which is very strange. But he walked by us and had flies circling his head, which was odd. So we went to Edinburgh and came back to the castle, and we got our tickets and everything, and we walk into the courtyard, and I was with my cousin, my mom, and my aunt and uncle, and they're all kind of hanging out in the courtyard, and from the show, I knew where the torture chamber was. So I walked in there by myself. I was the only one in there. And it was just like this overwhelming feeling like I shouldn't be here type of a thing. And so I walked back out, and so we toured the castle, and I want to say it was the St. James room. And me and my mom were looking at pictures. I believe that the owner of the castle, it was like a picture of him with like Princess Diana or something like that. And this is in July, so it was really hot in the castle. And a cold air went by me and my mom. And my mom said, "Oh, they got air conditioning in that room. Let's go in that room." And we walk in that room, and it's hot like all the other rooms. It was just bizarre. And then we all went down to the cemetery, and we're walking around the tombstones and stuff. And my cousin, he was trying to call his wife, who stayed behind in London area, and his cell phone wouldn't work at all. And I got this on tape. He goes, "I've been to Afghanistan, Saudi Arabia, but in this little plot of land, I cannot get a signal." But as soon as we walked out of the cemetery, he had a full signal. It was just bizarre. And then my other story is the Stanley Hotel. So I had a wedding there with my first husband. We got married just outside the concert hall. But the first night we were there, we stayed in room 401. It was the Dunraven room. And I remember I was sitting on the bed, and I was looking at the menu. And I said, "Oh, cool, they have macaroni and cheese." Something just touched me. And it was like a brush on my shoulder type of a thing. And then I kind of didn't think that much of it, and I just went back to looking at the menu. And then we did a ghost tour a couple nights later, and we were in the concert hall, and we're in the basement. And the gal doing the tour, I forget what the supposed ghost name was. It's a lady. And she asked it to open the door, and it did. And then it would shut the door and open the door, and it was just very bizarre. And then we went to another room, and I believe it's the same room that I heard somebody else on your podcast talking about. And there's just a bunch of furniture in it. And we were all sitting in there, and there's nobody else in the concert hall. And it sounded like a party going on upstairs, just walking around and thumping and stuff. And it was just... It's one of those things where it's like you want to see something, but then you don't. But it was pretty cool. And my mom, she stayed on the second floor, and she actually heard piano music going on quite a bit at night, which I heard Mrs. Stanley tends to do, which is pretty cool. And then my other story, just a little one, me and my current husband, we went to Tombstone for our honeymoon. And we did a ghost tour of the birdcage. And when we got there, we ended up being the only two on the tour, which is pretty cool. But we're standing in the main room while the gal was like checking us in, and we're looking at stuff. And I noticed him looking up top. So on the right-hand side, they got the stairs, and you go up to the balconies or whatever, and there's some curtains up there. And I remember him looking up there, and then he kind of looked at me and gave me a weird look, but he didn't say anything. And he's a pretty big skeptic. And I didn't think much of it, and we did the ghost tour and everything, and we were walking back we were staying at Kate's Cozy Cabin, so we're walking back to our cabin, and he goes, "It was the weirdest thing. I swear somebody pulled the curtain like they were looking, like seeing, looking down at me or something." I was like, well, that's bizarre. And I didn't really feel that weird in the bird cage. But the next day we went back and went to the gift shop. And it's like instantly I just got sick. And I had to walk out of there. And my husband was kind of annoyed with me. He's like, well, why'd you leave me in there? I was going to buy a shirt. And I was like, I had to get out of there. Like, I don't know what it was, but I had to get out of there. So those are my stories. And when this is all over, hopefully I get to take a trip to Gettysburg. So maybe I'll have more stories. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Those are great stories, Ashley. Thanks so much for sharing. And if you get a chance to go to Gettysburg, you definitely have to let us know if anything happens. Do you have a ghost experience that you'd like to share? I'd love to hear it. Record your haunted story on your phone and send it to GhostMagnetTV@gmail.com, and make sure to include your name and city and state. Look forward to hearing it. Hey guys, if you're a fan of Ghost Magnet, please take a moment to subscribe to the podcast and like our Facebook page so you can stay informed on the latest Ghost Magnet news. We've got lots of spooky new content coming your way that you won't want to miss. Subscribe and stay tuned.